Hi gang, I know it's been ages, but I haven't been slack. I have actually been working on the car, and the problem is it takes so much time to edit the videos and prepare them, and that was really slowing me down. So I am going to put out some new videos on the progress I've been making, but I thought I'd get some work done, video it along the way and take some photos, and then I can edit it together and probably do a voiceover to explain some of the finer details so it's not wobbly all the time. So here's a quick look at the things that I've been doing for the last little while. I actually scored a couple of heritage door skins, which I'm going to have to modify a little bit, cut them out here to fit the Australian doors, because we have a slightly different door on the Australian built minis. But I've got two heritage door skins, so I can reskin my doors, and it should be super slick. So I'm very excited about that. I'll be doing a video on that as well. Of course, we have this section of the panel done. The back is all done. Move around here. I've actually been seam sealing it along here to make sure it's watertight. We come along to the back section. This is all primed with epoxy primer, and I've sealed right along the edge here. And this was the side that had a big dent in it, so I've removed that dent. I used lots of heat and PDR tool and hammer and dolly to get it nice and straight, and some Evercoat, thanks to Trev's blog. And then inside, blah, 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 new floor pan. So this is a new floor pan, half pans that come to the underneath side of the cross member. So I cut out both floor panels, and now they've been welded in and butt seam welded all the way around. And then that's some seam sealer that you can see there. So I've got a video on how I did all that stuff. The line across the middle is seam sealer to make sure that once the central cross member is in place, I don't get rust on the floor again. So that's all sealed up. That was quite a big job, so I can show you through that. And the roof, this obviously came as a commercial van, and it had the same color all over. Some years ago I stripped it off and painted it black, but I've since changed my mind and decided that I wanted it back to original color, and I put a little quiz up on the Facebook page for minivans and asked, should I do it black or original color, and it was overwhelming in favor of original color. So I stripped this all back completely to bare metal, sanded it off in 800 grit, and then epoxy coated the whole thing, and cleaned all this up, and it's all back to original color. So that's epoxy, which is great because it keeps out the moisture, and this is actually sandable as well. And I've done about 4 coats on there. And then the next thing I'll do, I'll spray it with some spray putty and get that all smooth, put some guide coat on top of it so I can see high and low spots, try to get it as flat as I can, then do one more coat of epoxy to seal it, and then I'll do the final color. So it should be really good. I wanted to show you this section here. Because I'm a drummer and I used to lug all my stuff around in the Mini, this was my daily drive for years. Here I've hit something inside and it's put a dent on the roof, and what I want to do is just knock it down using a PDR tool, so paintless dent removal, and I'm going to see if I can knock that down rather than having to use a heavy hammer and dolly, which will probably cause more problems. So I'm just going to see if I can knock this down. Let's see how it looks after that. So here it is after about a minute of tapping down, and I'm just using one of these, which is a piece of nylon and a hammer just to knock it down. So here we are after only a few minutes, and you'll see that it's pretty good. So this is something that's shat me for years. I can say that, can't I? Shat me. It's funny, isn't it? You've got this epic rust factory on wheels and you're worried about a couple of dents in the roof. Priorities. I'd always see it when I was washing it, and I thought one day I'm going to deal with that. Actually, I could have dealt with it back then just using this Paintless dent remover tool, which is just a piece of nylon really and a hammer. But I have now. The good thing about it is, because we're at the primer stage, it's easy for me to just give it another lick primer, and then the whole thing's going to be spray puttied anyway and then flattened down, so it should be really good. So yeah, I recommend that, rather than getting the hammer and dolly out and maybe causing more problems, scratching the paint and scratching the metal and stretching the whole thing. Just get yourself a PDR tool. I'll put the link below, and it's a really good, effective, controlled way of pulling and pushing metal. Another thing I had to do was to get myself a new fuel line, and I've actually brazed the fitting on the end, which this is the section here. And I tried to use a butane torch, but it just wasn't hot enough. So by chance, I was at Aldi shopping, and they had these MAP butane MAP cells here, bottles, and the matching gun with it. It's about $30 or so. And the benefit of MAP over butane is it gets a lot hotter. And it's actually propane and dimethyl ether, and it gets a lot hotter than just a butane torch, which I was using before, which meant that I'll be able to braze a whole bunch of things. But yeah, I had to do the fuel line. I'm not saying I cut through the fuel line when I did the floor. I'm not saying that. Yeah, I did. I had it tied up out of the way, but it must have come loose, and I cut right through it and fuel poured out. I'm very lucky to still be here, actually, because that could have burst into flames. So luckily I had a wet rag and I quickly threw it over it, put the fire out, because I happened to be using the grinder, which is obviously sparks aplenty, but was okay. So yes, this is the tube that I'm going to use for fuel. It's copper over steel, and the reason why I went for that is, firstly, it's protected. The copper protects it from rusting, rather than just normal Bundy tube that's just steel, mild steel, like it would have been used in the Mini before. I didn't want to go totally copper because a lot of fuel now has ethanol in it, 20% fuel, like the E20 that we have in Australia, 20% ethanol, and ethanol actually reacts with copper. So I didn't want to go completely copper tube either, plus that can be brittle and can break, even though I know a lot of people use it for hot rods and stuff like that. But this is a good compromise. It's nice and tough. The steel doesn't react to the ethanol, and I think in the future there'll be a lot more fuels with ethanol. So I'm not planning on putting ethanol in the Mini at the moment. I just use 95 or 91 fuel. But in the future, if they add more ethanol, I wanted to make it a bit more future-proof, so I went for that. And I brazed the fitting on the end of it. And yeah, I'm not saying that I cut through the fuel line when I did the floor. I'm not saying that. We just won't go there. Another thing is I actually built this car bed for my son, which he thinks is totally awesome, Dad. He's 4 and he's obsessed with cars. So yes, done some videos on this, and I will be updating soon. Thanks for watching.